Joining us now on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline is our old friend DB, Damon Benning. What's going on, man?
How are you fine people doing today?
Oh, we are doing well. Just covering a lot of ground on a Monday here, and imagining what it would have been like if Mike Sauter was the one that accidentally laid out Caitlin Clark after a basketball game.
Now that would have been funny. So,
wait, Ravi, tell him what. Tell him what you think you would have done.
That would be interesting because
he definitely would have stood over
probably
her, right?
Would have challenged.
Yeah,
I was going to say he probably would have challenged.
Ravi, say it. Ravi, go.
Well, like one-on-one.
What?
He would have stood over and been like, "What?"
That is his go-to, isn't it? What?
He would have like popped the chest out, you know?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I could see it. There were some weird angles, right? Like,
yeah.
One angle I thought, oh man, she got rocked, and then the next I was like, maybe not so bad. But I guess at the end of the day, I don't know. I just want people safe.
Yeah.
Right. So
that's a crazy take, Damon. I
don't really care about like whether she did really get hit hard or she didn't or whatever. I just don't want athletes to be in that situation. Is that a hot take?
That's a scalding hot take.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, because I won't say anyone. There's very, very few people I dislike enough where it's like, oh, you got hurt, but do that again, right? I'm in the solutions business, right? So you just try to keep that from happening again. That's kind of the gist of it.
The way I saw it was like it. I don't think she actually got hit that hard. I think it startled her more than anything. And like we've all been there, right? Like something kind of comes out of nowhere and you almost overreact to it because you didn't see it coming. Like that's how I viewed that situation.
Yeah, 100%. And I didn't get into the weeds of like the severity or whether it was media or not media. I'm just like,
was she selling it?
Yeah,
selling the call.
I just don't want her to have to deal with it, you know. And I appreciate her talents. Even though she drills the state schools almost every time she sees her, but that's okay. She's just a good player, and I always want those people playing.
DB, let's start off with So Avarie asked a super interesting question, so I'll let her ask it. But I want to start off with:
Am I as big a fan of the Chiefs as she is? No.
I don't know that anybody is. But
we won't go there. Your Steelers didn't help us at all.
Oh, we're trying. I'm just glad my man Mike Tomlin is back. So we'll figure out the offensive side of the ball later.
I want to start with Michigan here, right? Because I think it's more likely than not that Harbaugh ends up moving on to the NFL. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right, whatever. But if he does, I'm kind of looking at possibilities for future head coach at Michigan. And it's kind of a weird job, right? Because of how they view themselves, not only in football, but also how they view themselves in the academic world of college athletics. And so I think that really narrows down their search field more than it would most places coming off of a national title. I know a lot of people throw Sharon Moore out there. I know some people have thrown Jesse Minter out there. Am I crazy to think maybe David Shaw is like the perfect guy to replace him again?
Well, Shaw's kind of laying in the cut, isn't he? And he has some Michigan man tendencies.
That's what I said,
right?
Even though he's not like technically.
Out in California, they recruited Caleb pretty hard early on, and I think to the good or to the bad, right? Because I'm pitting this against, I should say, like the David Shaw that I would hear on draft day, or the David Shaw that I saw that was having a lot of success at Stanford early on. But the last couple of years hadn't really been like that, right? So, Rizak took Caleb out to their team camp, and it was going well, and I was getting some insight early on because I was coaching, and I said, what do you think? Does it fit? And DJ said, oh, it was well run, it was organized, I'm just not, you got kind of this aura that there's things other than football that are really important to him.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of stuck with me, right? Kind of that academia, that professional, that, hey, we're more than just athletes kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, a couple months later, I talked to Harrison Phillips quite a bit, and I was getting some insight because his defensive coordinator was the one that was recruiting Caleb pretty hard, and I got this just like deductive reasoning, right? I just kind of got this sense that it's not that football was secondary, not necessary. It's just that there was this totality of the thing of being at Stanford playing football that was most important, right? And that's kind of how I feel about Michigan. And it's weird how, Shaw went from the darling 6, 7 years ago to Cali, man. He got fired, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like that line from Batman or whatever. He said, you
live long enough to,
yeah, the hero villain thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you
either die a hero or you live long
or
enough
live
to
long enough to be yeah, right? So I get those vibes, but that's kind of why I like Moore or Mentor, because there's just something about that job. Brandon Williams is a Michigan guy. He went to Central and had a heck of a career there playing in the defensive backfield, and I talked to him from time to time about Michigan, and there is this totality of image, kind of this aura. And, oh, by the way, we want to be pretty good on the field, too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's for everybody,
mm-hmm.
right? So you do have to kind of have somebody, if that's what they want to uphold, right? Because even for a guy like, Brady Hoke, he just didn't seem polished enough, right? He didn't know how to blend getting a high caliber athlete. And I mean, that was the guy that I think would have enjoyed coaching 2 and 3 stars, right? Unfortunately, that's just not how Michigan wants to recruit either. So there has to be this balance, but you need the right kind of high caliber guys that it's hard to explain like the physical attributes or the emotional characteristics with it. But there is definitely something to the term Michigan man. Like when you hear it,
mm-hmm.
you kind of get an image of what it is and what it means to be. So I think it's a really, really tricky job.
The image that I get is usually pretentious, but that's okay.
And I don't mean it to the negative.
No,
right?
I
just
know.
think
I was
think
being
there's
a jerk.
way. I think there's a way that you go about doing your business, because for even as much versatility as Charles Woodson has, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's still this aura about him in terms of the essence of who he is, and a lot of it has to do with Michigan, right? He acts like a Michigan man. Jim Harbaugh acts like a Michigan man. There's just something that happens within the walls of that culture that I think isn't for everybody. It's just not. I mean, look how Ward Manuel carries himself. I mean, you don't know if he's the head of the mafia or he's running Apple, right? He's very buttoned up. He has this image and he gets things done. It's just, they leave you kind of wondering what makes him tick. And I think that's a total Michigan thing.
That kind of leads into the question I asked Ravi earlier about Jim Harbaugh taking these interviews with NFL teams, because I said everywhere he goes, he's successful, but never is there like a headline or an article or the media. We never know why he's successful. It just like it's Jim Harbaugh, so it's like successful. But like when we break down the whole Michigan winning the national championship this year, people talked about just like the team overcoming, all the outside noise. And then people were like, Jim Harbaugh, despite all, but like no one ever tells you like,
how good is a guy that missed 6 games?
Yeah, like when Nick Saban retires, we could tell you 5 different attributes on the spot. Like, he's a great this, he's a great that. He develops coaches, he's a great recruit, all these things. And then you get to Jim Harbaugh and it's like, Yeah, I mean, I guess he gets it done, but I couldn't sit here and tell you 5 things that makes him like a wonderful football mind, because maybe he is, but from the outside, we don't ever hear like what he does football wise that like makes him a great coach.
I think it's 3 things. Number one, it's confidence. Like I saw this firsthand in Indianapolis when he talked after Coach Rule, and he was kind of waiting in the wings underneath where he walked to get food, and he was getting ready to talk, and he just, at the time, I think I was thinking to myself, gosh, he loves commanding the room. He's the maestro, right? You could just tell he knew he was going to get questions about the NCAA. Like he held court, and I'm like, gosh, he's a supremely confident or secure individual. The other thing is he's highly competitive. Like he has such resolve, because remember, they went through some transformations a little bit. He upped the recruiting profile a little bit. They went through COVID. They kind of had the down year. He revamped his staff. Quietly. He kind of pulled like a Kirk Ferentz, right? Where he went and got, Kirk hired some Iowa guys. He went and got Hodge, and he got younger in the recruiting office and brought back some former players. And not that that's always the answer, because Lord knows that's not always the answer. But quietly, he's so he made really good hires because he didn't stand pat. Remember Gaddis? We weren't sure it was going to work. He wanted to go tempo and spread. And then the next year it kind of worked. And then all of a sudden he's gone. And then he lets go of a defensive coordinator. And didn't like the blitz schemes. And so he's constantly, he seems very demanding. And so I think, and Coach Rule has some tendencies like that, right? Like he's never satisfied. And I think there's something about people that do that, and it's kind of underappreciated because you don't really see it or hear about it, because nobody wants to complain. Oh gosh, like this guy's never satisfied. He's constantly swapping this. People just don't talk about that.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is I think quietly he's made some good hires.
Yeah.
He has got some really good assistants. I think he's got a fantastic staff at Michigan. And I always describe Coach Harbaugh, he's crazy like a fox. We were in Chicago one time, and he pulled up and he was waiting for a ride, and he's frantically talking on his phone in the lobby. And I'm kind of just waiting, watching, and my radio partner at the time is kind of a social guy, and so he was chomping at the bit to go talk to him, but he's kind of by himself. And I'm standing in the lobby. It's probably 6:00 at night. The session's about over, and Severe and I are going to walk over and we're going to walk to go get some fried chicken. And I know, weird, right?
Just a funny detail.
I wasn't going to say anything, DB. I wasn't going to say anything.
Every detail.
So, I just remember, like, I was listening to the conversation. He's walking, he's pacing, he's walking, he's pacing, he's walking, he's pacing. And so I was like, hey, sorry to interrupt. Just want to shake your hand, man. Appreciate kind of what you brought to the conference. And I mean, he just looked dead at me, and he's like, oh. It's like, man, my wife, these kids, like, I need to be home. I got to get home. Like, they're driving her crazy. I need to be home.
Like, okay.
And I'm just like,
sick.
Of all the things I thought you were going to say and who I thought you were talking to, that's not what I thought you were going to say. So I just think he's crazy like a fox.
Yeah.
And he's constantly one step ahead.
Yeah.
He's the only guy that parlays almost being on the outs and living in shrouds of darkness to better opportunities. He's mastered how to fall up, and I think he's always one step ahead. I just, it's an underappreciated skill set, but he's definitely got it down.
Well, I mean, he'll always be second place in falling up to Willie Taggart, but
that's not going to forgive him for what he momentarily did to your Florida State Seminoles, are you?
Never.
It's a quick two and a Q or whatever that was. 1.5.
I don't even know if he got a full 2. And it was still too long. Listen, I wanted him to hire Lane. That's all I'm saying. I wanted Lane Kiffin.
isn't it amazing how he's kind of stood pat? Well, he must really like Oxford because he seems like a guy. I mean, look at him in the portal again this year. Even losing Junkins, it's like, no big deal.
Mhm.
Let's get that guy to
No,
Ohio
their
State.
roster is going to be nuts next year.
Dude, I know they're gonna be top 3 in the conference, and it's like, and he's done it quietly with good defense and being able to run the ball, and it's like, and all I ever can hear him say in my head is "come to the SIP," right? I mean, he's just
no big deal.
I don't know, man. Life is good for Lane. I think he's found it.
Speaking of like strange guys to have an interaction with, Lane is on that list.
Yeah, so he's one of the guys that Andrew and I came up with a short list. This was a couple summers ago about, and this is when he was huge on Coach Rule, and I was like, there's no way. And he's like, no, I want Coach Rule. This was before it was really kind of popular.
Yeah,
I think I had like Lane.
Oh,
like
I'd have taken Lane in a heartbeat.
Like 2 or 3, and at that time, just to show you what a genius I am, like I still had Aranda in my top 5.
I did too. No, I liked Aranda.
So it's like, and I mean, you get new information. It's fluid, but
I'll die on the Matt Campbell hill, and I probably have.
I'm Team Campbell, class act.
Yeah.
Really good recruiter, straight shooter. I like he's somebody where, like, if something happened to you and he had to watch somebody you care about, like you feel like, okay, he'll figure out.
You're in good hands there.
You're in good hands. Yeah. I'm Team Campbell.
Yeah, Lane is. I ran into him at the College World Series a couple years ago.
Now Lane, I wouldn't say the same thing about.
Not sure.
But I would mind him coaching my team. I don't know where they would end up. Right. I mean, I'd be gone for a couple of months, and I could see Caleb calling me. I'm like, "Where are you?" "Oh, I'm some uncharted island with Coach What?
I'm not sure I'd let him watch my dog, but I would let him coach my football team.
Yeah, he definitely can coach.
No, he's a very strange guy to interact with. I only met him briefly at the College World Series, but it seems like when he's not coaching or talking about football, that there is just nothing going on behind the eyes. It's the most bizarre. And maybe he just was like, hey, just take this picture, get out of here. Maybe that's what it was. But it was like a very strange, it was almost like talking to like a really realistic.
Nick Sirianni?
It was like talking to like a really realistic robot. It was weird.
It's good. Like I said, you listened to Sirianni this last week? Oh my goodness.
Let's speaking of Sirianni, let's switch gears to NFL here. Obviously, you've got your NFC and AFC Championship games set, but I'm curious what you think about Buffalo, because they've obviously been right there with Kansas City for the last few years, but haven't been able to get over that hump. How do you weigh in your mind the, hey, we're right there, we need to stay the course, versus like, obviously we haven't been able to get over this hump, we need to do something different?
So that's a great question. They have to focus on so the natural tendency, especially in the NFL, is what do we have to do to beat Team X, right? Buffalo has most of that. They just don't have Patrick Mahomes. So Buffalo can't be fooled by the fool's gold. Buffalo needs to stay within what they do. They need to go get another wide receiver. They got to go get another cornerback, and they got to go get a D tackle, right? Mahomes isn't going anywhere anytime soon. And Allen, outside of probably, I'm not going to apologize for being a great talent, because he is. But, I mean, outside of probably 4 plays, he may have been the best player on the field yesterday. He just wasn't – he just didn't make the plays that Mahomes did. And remember, Mahomes got the great catch from Scantling.
Yeah.
And he got the commitment from Pacheco when it mattered, which for the life of me, I can't figure out why Buffalo got away from Cook, right? Like, I don't know. I mean, they'll have to revisit that, but Buffalo's just got to keep it in now. So again, you got to go get another wide receiver. I mean, Davis is a free agent. You're getting inconsistency. Maybe you like Shakur. He's still not a number. For whatever anybody wants to say about Dorsey, Diggs hasn't been the same since Dorsey hadn't been there. So maybe it's age, maybe it's coincidence. I don't know, but they got to figure out how to get Diggs going again, and they've got to get a little more stout up front against the run.
I saw something in the break that said that the Bills had the ball for 37 minutes and they ran 31 more plays than the Chiefs. Like, I don't remember that looking like they had 31 more plays than the Chiefs.
It's the Mahomes factor. You're afraid to give him the ball regardless of how much time is or isn't on the clock.
Yeah.
You just think when it matters, he's going to find a way to make a play, and he doesn't need a lot of cracks at it. There was a stretch where I felt like it got away from Buffalo, where I felt like they should have been up probably 10 or 13, and they were up 3, and I felt like they were gonna be in trouble. Kansas City couldn't convert to touchdowns in the red zone, and they were kicking field goals, and I'm like, God, it feels like Buffalo should be up more at the half.
Yeah,
and they weren't, and you just can't give a winner, a talented winner, that many cracks at it. And he figured out a way. He made some throws, especially on a couple of check downs along the sidelines where he scrambles. Because how cool was it to see that those were the 2 quarterbacks that led the league in terms of avoiding sacks? So you knew it wasn't going to be about pass rush. It was going to be about who could make the most plays. And Kansas City's defense was probably the best unit on the field yesterday. A little bit better than their offense, a little bit better than Buffalo's offense, and certainly better than Buffalo's defense. But I've liked Kansas City's secondary and that defense for a long time.
DB, about a minute left here. So as I'm sitting here as a 49ers fan, I'm looking across the aisle and I'm going, okay, the Ravens might scare me the most in terms of how that game has gone. But you just went through a very good job of describing why I never want to play Patrick Mahomes. Where is it? Ravens? Like, is that the answer? Who I want to play? Is that the right answer?
Well, I like Lamar Jackson, but I love Patrick Mahomes. I think Spagnuolo will have something for Lamar Jackson to force him to have to throw the ball. I think Kansas City's got to shore up their linebacking play a little bit, but I think Baltimore's the most complete team, but they don't have Patrick Mahomes, and I know what I'm saying. I know. Like,
I know.
Lamar Jackson is incredible.
He's not Patrick Mahomes.
He doesn't win when it counts.
Yeah.
So I mean, and I hate to discount the Lions because they're on a heater. But if it's Niners Chiefs or Niners Ravens, I'm not complaining. But it's hard not to cheer for Dan Campbell. No offense, Ravi.
Hey, come on, man. No, DB, how dare you? We appreciate it as always. I'm sure we will.
The 49ers are my pick to win the Super Bowl, so you're okay.
That's right. Sorry, let just ride with that pick. Don't get crazy on me, DB.
You guys are good.
All right, we'll talk to you again soon, buddy.
Anytime.
Bye, DB.